The Alpha Heir was dying, his wolf was fading, until the girl who was never meant to love him kissed him under the full moon, and the curse screamed. What happened in this romance story? Find out. Now the story. Rumors moved through the kingdom of Varanth like wind between trembling leaves. The prince can no longer walk. His wolf has gone silent. He won't survive the next moon cycle. No one spoke these words loudly. They whispered them behind closed doors, in dim-lit taverns, in the training grounds where warriors pretended not to fear the future. For if the Alpha Heir was dying, the kingdom's strength was dying with him. Inside the obsidian-walled palace, truth lived far darker than rumor. The night was still when it happened again. Kaelan's body jerked off his bed, his back arching violently as pain ripped through him like knives forged of lightning. His limbs stiffened, a terrible paralysis seizing him mid-breath. His wolf, once a fierce, proud beast that roared inside him, now whimpered, drowning in weakness. "Not again, please, not again." His voice cracked as he clawed at the sheets. His vision blurred, the world spun. His heart thundered like a drum trying to break free from his ribs. The healers rushed in. "Hold him!" one shouted, but Kaelan barely heard them. Their hands gripped his shoulders, his wrists, his legs that no longer obeyed him. His skin burned like fire, then froze like death. He tasted iron. The room smelled of fear. "His wolf is fading faster," whispered a healer, terror squeezing her voice. "This is no illness. This is curse." The word echoed in the silent chamber. Curse. Kaelan gasped as the seizure tightened its hold, his body trembling uncontrollably. Inside him, his wolf let out a pitiful growl, then fell silent. Too silent. "Father," Kaelan choked out, barely conscious. Don't let me die." But Alpha King Ronan had already been summoned. He entered the chamber like a storm-given flesh, massive, broad-shouldered, eyes glowing with barely restrained rage and fear. Ronan had lived through wars. He had slain merciless rogues with his bare hands, but nothing terrified him more than the sight of his only son writhing in agony. "Healers!" Ronan's voice thundered. "Why can't you stop this?" "Your Majesty, we've tried every remedy. Herbs, tonics, wolf strength magic. Nothing slows it. Whatever grips him, it is not of nature." Ronan's jaw tightened, his fists curled so hard his knuckles turned bone white. Kaelan's breathing slowed, and the seizure began to ease. His body fell limp, sweat soaked his hair. His once bright silver eyes were dull, nearly lifeless. The king moved to his side, lifting his son gently, as though Kaelan were fragile glass. "My boy," he whispered, a voice no one else ever heard from him. "I will not lose you." Kaelan swallowed weakly. "Father, my wolf, he's so quiet." Ronan closed his eyes. That silence was a death sentence. When Kaelan slept again, exhausted beyond measure, the king stepped into the corridor. His beta approached, head bowed. "Your Majesty, the council is restless. They fear the heir will not see the next moon." Ronan lifted his head slowly. The fury in his eyes was volcanic. "Then we move faster." "Faster?" the beta asked. Ronan stared at the dark horizon outside the palace windows, where the moon hung heavy like an omen. "My son will marry," he said coldly, "before the week ends." The beta stiffened. "Marry? Now? But my king!"
The heir must produce a child before the curse steals him. Ronan's voice was final, deadly. The bloodline must live. The kingdom must stand. And the bride? Ronan's jaw hardened. I have already chosen her. He turned, cloak sweeping behind him like a shadow, and murmured to himself, Prince Kaelan will not die without leaving hope behind. Far away, unaware her fate had already been sealed, a young woman named Selene slept peacefully, never imagining she had just been chosen to marry a dying wolf prince, and that her arrival would change the fate of the kingdom forever.
The royal summons arrived at dawn, delivered by a palace guard clad in black armor, his expression heavy with secrecy. Selene had barely finished tying her hair when her mother, Maurice, burst into the room. Dress quickly, Maurice hissed. The king requests our presence. Immediately! Selene froze mid-breath. The king? No one in our small district was summoned to the palace unless something terrible had happened. A crime, a prophecy, a war. But when Selene met Maurice's eyes, she saw not fear, but excitement. Mother, what did you do? Selene whispered. Maurice only smiled tightly. Hurry. The palace throne room felt colder than the morning air outside. Alpha King Ronan sat on his elevated seat, his presence filling the chamber like living gravity. Selene had seen him before, from a distance, during festivals and parades, but up close, he was something else entirely. Powerful, intimidating, a wolf forged from authority. Beside him stood Beta Older, hands clasped behind his back. Selene of the Kaelan line, Ronan said, his voice steady but strained. I summoned you because your presence is required in the matter of urgency. Selene bowed respectfully. Her mother bowed deeper, lingering a moment longer than necessary. My king, Selene answered, how may I serve the kingdom? Ronan looked at her with eyes that had seen too much loss. It is about my son. A quiet shift rippled through the room. Selene felt her heartbeat quicken. Everyone had heard the whispers about the prince, rumors of paralysis, of fading strength, of curses too dark to name. Ronan continued, each word deliberate. He requires a bride, and he requires one now. Selene blinked. Surely she misheard. My king, you mean... Yes, Ronan's gaze sharpened. I have chosen you. Her breath hitched. A chill crawled up her spine. No, Selene said immediately, eyes wide. I cannot accept. I'm not ready for marriage, and certainly not to a man I do not know. Ronan did not flinch. He is the future of this kingdom. But he is dying, she whispered, before she could stop herself. The air in the room froze. Ronan's jaw tensed, but he did not deny it. Selene took a step back. I am sorry, my king, but I cannot. I will not bind myself to a dying man just to bear a child I never asked for. Selene, Maurice hissed beside her, mortified. Forgive me, she said in a breathless rush, bowing stiffly, but my answer is no. Without waiting for permission, she turned and walked out. Heart pounding, breaths shaking. She felt eyes burning into her back, but she didn't slow. She wouldn't be traded like a piece of land. She wouldn't be forced into a life she never chose. Inside the throne room, silence held the air until Maurice cleared her throat, hands trembling with both embarrassment and opportunity. My king, she said with an overly sweet voice, please excuse my daughter's poor judgment. She is impulsive, emotional, but we, our family, would be honored to serve the royal bloodline. Ronan looked down at her with a gaze heavy as stone. You accept the arrangement,
Maurice smiled, greed glinting like polished steel. Yes, my king, on behalf of my daughter, I accept. Selene had reached the outer corridor when she heard voices echoing through the marble hall. She slowed her steps, then stopped entirely. Her mother's voice drifted out clearly. We want nothing in return, my king, only your blessings. Selene's stomach dropped. Ronan's voice followed, deep and exhausted. The wedding must happen before the new moon. Selene's breath caught. Wedding? Already arranged? Already decided? She pressed herself against the wall, pulse racing. And compensation will be granted. Your daughter will live in the palace, you will receive land on the eastern ridge, and a permanent seat in the palace council. Maurice gasped, ecstatic. My king, I am deeply humbled. You honor us beyond measure. Selene's nails dug into her palms. Her mother was selling her for a lifetime seat at court. A fresh wave of betrayal crashed through her, hot and suffocating. And she will cooperate, Maurice added smoothly. I will ensure she does. Selene clapped a hand over her mouth, holding in a stunned, shaky breath. Her life was no longer hers. Her future had been decided without her voice, without her choice, without her consent. She stumbled back from the doorway as tears blurred her vision, and in that moment she realized the king was desperate, her mother was ambitious, and she was trapped between them, their pawn, their offering, their solution. What she didn't know was that a deeper truth lay beneath all of it, a truth older than the kingdom itself, a truth written in the blood of wolves, a truth tying her fate to the dying prince long before either of them were born.
Selene did not sleep that night. Her mother's voice echoed in her skull long after she fled the palace corridor. She will cooperate. I will ensure she does. Land on the eastern ridge. A permanent seat in the palace council. Sold. Her mother had sold her like a prized object. By dawn, Selene couldn't breathe inside their small guest quarters. She slipped out quietly, her steps quick and restless, anger burning behind her ribs. She needed answers. She needed her mother alone, away from the king, away from palace walls, away from lies. The palace garden was empty at this hour. Dew clung to the silver-leaved flowers, mist curling between ancient trees. She waited, pacing. Where is she? Maurice always rose early. She would come, eventually. Selene stopped near a stone bench, rubbing her temples. That was when she heard it. A low, strangled sound, half gasp, half growl. She froze. Another sound followed, a thud, a muffled cry. Selene spun and pushed through the flowering archway, and the breath was ripped clean from her lungs. Prince Kaelan was there, alone, collapsed on the ground. His body convulsed violently, limbs jerking uncontrollably, his hands clawing at the soil as if fighting invisible chains. His silver eyes flickered with pain, losing focus. Sweat rolled down his temples. His legs, still and lifeless, rested twisted beneath him. Help, he rasped, voice breaking. Can't breathe. Selene's heart lurched. This was the dying prince, the man they wanted to force on her, the man she had refused. But right now he was just a suffering human, pain-struck, helpless, alone. There was no time to call for the healers. Selene dropped to her knees beside him. Prince Kaelan? Kaelan, can you hear me? She whispered urgently. His body jerked harder, his teeth clenched in agony. Selene reached for him. Her fingers brushed his arm. The world shifted. A pulse.
Warm, powerful, electric shot through her palm like a living heartbeat. Kaelan's body arched once as if struck by lightning, and then stilled. Instantly, the tremors ended. The spasms stopped. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. Kaelan lay panting, chest heaving, sweat glistening, but the seizure was just gone. Just gone. Selene's hand remained on his arm, trembling. Kaelan's eyelashes fluttered, his breathing slowed, then his eyes, dull moments ago, opened and locked directly on hers. Silver meeting storm gray. Confusion. Recognition. A fierce sudden need. He inhaled sharply, like something buried deep inside him had just awakened. "Selene," he whispered. Her entire body froze. How did he know her name? His trembling fingers lifted slightly, toward her face, toward her touch, toward something unnamed. But Selene jerked backward in panic. I shouldn't have. I need to go." She scrambled to her feet. Kaelan tried to push himself up. His arms shook violently, but he didn't look at his own weakness. He looked at her. "Don't leave," he gasped. "Please, don't." The sound of his plea ripped at something inside her. She backed away anyway, heart racing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Then she turned and ran, disappearing into the mist, breath breaking, mind spinning. Behind her, Kaelan collapsed back on the grass, still staring at the place she had been. Inside him, after months of silence, his wolf stirred. A soft, shocked growl vibrated through his soul. "Mate." The voice was faint but real, alive. Kaelan's eyes widened, tears burning behind them. For the first time in months, hope flickered. She had touched him and his curse had stopped. She had touched him and his wolf had awakened. Selene. His salvation, his curse breaker, his destined mate. And she had run from him.
Kaelan lay in the garden long after Selene disappeared into the mist. His chest heaved, his fingers trembled. His wolf, silent for months, paced weakly inside him, sniffing the fading trail of the girl who had run. Mate, come back. But Kaelan could barely lift his body. He closed his eyes, letting the new, unfamiliar warmth in his chest steady him. For the first time in months, he felt alive. That same night, Selene woke with a gasp. Her room was dark, moonlight slipping through the window, but her heart thundered like she had been running for miles. The dream still clung to her like fog. A wolf, massive, silver, eyes glowing with pain and longing. It stood in a forest, looking directly at her, as if begging her to come closer. She pressed a hand to her chest. "Why him?" she whispered in the darkness. "Why now?" Her mind told her to stay far away from the dying prince, but her heart had heard the way he said her name, and she could not forget the raw pain she saw in his eyes, or the way his body calmed the moment she touched him. She curled her knees to her chest and silently begged the dreams to stop. They didn't. In the king's private chamber, Kaelan insisted on being brought to Ronan, even though his legs refused to obey him. 2 guards carried him inside, setting him gently in the ceremonial chair beside the king's desk. Ronan dismissed the guards and turned to face his son. "You're trembling," he said quietly. Kaelan swallowed. "I need to see her." Ronan stiffened. Kaelan, she stopped the seizure, father." Kaelan's voice broke, desperation leaking through his control. "She touched me, and it stopped instantly.
I don't know how, unless... He hesitated. Ronan's jaw clenched. Unless what? Kaelan's voice sank to a whisper. Unless she truly is my mate. Silence. Heavy, sharp, unavoidable. Ronan looked away. They had known this was possible. They had known it long before Kaelan ever saw her. That was why Ronan had chosen her, not only for her strength, not only for her lineage, but because the Moon Oracle once whispered that the prince's life force was tied to a girl born on the night of twin moons, Selene. The bond had been predicted years ago, but Ronan had hidden it. Kaelan stared at his father, breath thin. If she's my mate, then I need her. No. Ronan's tone hardened instantly. Kaelan flinched. Father! You barely survived the last bond flare, Ronan said, voice like stone. You remember what happened. The pain nearly killed you as a child. If the bond awakens fully, in your condition... Kaelan's fingers curled. He remembered. The fevers, the seizures, the agony that ripped through him at age 10 when the first thread of the bond brushed his soul. The healer warned, if the bond awakens prematurely, the heir's body will break before it stabilizes. But this time, Selene's touch healed him. Ronan continued, stepping closer. You will not see her again until the marriage. It is too dangerous now. Dangerous? Kaelan whispered. Father, she saved me. And that is exactly why she must stay away, Ronan hissed. If the bond strengthens before we complete the ritual, you will die. Kaelan's chest tightened painfully. He turned his head away, exhausted and defeated. Ronan placed a trembling hand on his shoulder, rare softness from a king who never allowed himself even a crack in his armor. I am trying to save you, my son. Kaelan said nothing, because deep inside him, his wolf growled, We need her. Elsewhere in the palace, Selene stood alone in the empty training hall, gripping the railing as she fought the strange ache in her chest. She felt pulled toward the prince, drawn, haunted. She hated the feeling. She didn't want to be tied to a stranger, especially one who frightened her with his pain, his sickness, his vulnerability, but she couldn't erase the image of him lying helpless in the garden. She couldn't unhear the trembling plea in his voice, Don't leave. And the dreams were becoming clearer. Every night, the silver wolf came closer. Every night, it looked more like the prince. She pressed her forehead against the cool wall, whispering into the silence, I don't understand this bond, and I don't want it. But deep inside her chest, something warm pulsed in return. Something ancient. Something waiting. Something that whispered, He is yours, and you are his. Selene squeezed her eyes shut. The bond she didn't understand was already waking. Selene stood in the quiet training hall, eyes closed, breathing hard, the warmth of that mysterious bond still pulsing faintly in her chest. She whispered to herself, I don't understand this bond, and I don't want it. But as she tried to steady her racing heart, the heavy wooden doors slammed open behind her. Selene! Her mother's voice, sharp, triumphant, breathless. Selene opened her eyes slowly, dread sinking into her stomach. Maurice marched across the hall with 2 palace guards behind her, a scroll clutched tightly in her hand. There you are, she said. The king has made his decision. Selene stiffened. Mother, I told you. You told me nothing that matters, Maurice snapped. Pack your things. You are returning to the palace immediately. Selene felt her breath leave her. Why? Maurice smiled, a twisted, eager smile. Because Alpha King Ronan has summoned you for a 3-day stay. He wants you to observe Prince Kaelan as a potential mate. Selene's mouth fell open. Absolutely not. I'm not a prize horse to be examined. Maurice held up the king's scroll, the wax seal glinting. You don't have a choice. This is an order from the throne. Selene's pulse pounded with fury and fear. 3 days. 3 whole days in the palace, with the prince, with the bond she didn't understand, with the dream she couldn't escape. The guard stepped closer. Maurice whispered, voice cold as steel, "You embarrass me again and I will disown you. Now walk." Selene felt that familiar betrayal slicing through her chest again, sharp, deep, unforgiving. But she walked. Because she had no power. Not here. Not against a king. Not against a mother who saw her as a ladder to climb. Later that evening, Prince Kaelan sat at one end of the long dining table, his posture tense, the weight of the day pressing down on his frail body. Ronan sat at the head of the table. Selene entered quietly, escorted by guards. Her heart hammered when she saw Kaelan. She remembered his trembling body, his choking gasps, the desperate way he said her name. Kaelan lifted his gaze, and the world seemed to tighten. Their eyes met. Selene looked away quickly. Kaelan looked down, jaw clenched, humiliation burning through him. He hated this, being watched, being pitied, being handled like fragile glass. He hated needing help to sit upright. He hated feeling weak in front of her. Ronan gestured stiffly. Sit. The meal was silent at first. Selene kept her gaze on her plate, hands clenched in her lap. Kaelan tried to eat, but his hand kept shaking. His wolf paced inside him, restless, agitated, trying to reach for the girl sitting only a few steps away. Ronan observed both of them with a king's calculation and a father's exhaustion. The tension in the room felt like a storm ready to break. Kaelan reached for his cup. His finger slipped. His wrist buckled. The cup fell. It should have shattered on the floor. It didn't. Because Selene moved. Fast. Instinctively. Her hand shot out, catching the cup and Kaelan's hand before it hit the ground. The moment their skin touched, everything stopped. Kaelan inhaled sharply. The trembling in his hand vanished instantly. The pain in his joints evaporated. His wolf surged forward, pressing against the bond like a heartbeat. Selene felt it too. A warmth shot through her arm, spreading to her chest, her stomach, her lungs, like he was breathing through her. Her fingers trembled around his. Kaelan stared up at her, pupils dilating, breath unsteady. "Selene," he whispered. Her name sounded like a prayer torn from a dying man. Selene froze. She should have let go. She should have pulled back. But she couldn't move. Couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. Ronan, watching sharply, leaned forward, eyes widening. He had seen that before, years ago, when the bond first flickered in Kaelan's soul. This was no coincidence. This was the mate bond responding, strengthening, dangerously. Selene finally tore her hand away, stumbling back like she'd touched fire. Kaelan slumped slightly, but the relief from her touch lingered in his veins, warm and intoxicating. Selene's voice trembled. "I didn't mean to." Ronan stood abruptly, chair scraping. "That is enough for tonight." Selene backed away, breath shaking. Kaelan watched her as if she were light itself, something he needed to survive. Because he did, and she knew it. That terrified her more than anything. The moon hung low over the palace, casting pale light through the stained glass windows, as High Priestess Nyx studied Selene with unsettling calm. Her ancient silver eyes glowed faintly, the mark of one who had walked between life and spirit for far too long. Selene's throat tightened. My what? She whispered. Nyx stepped closer, lowering her hood. His fated mate, the one the moon goddess tailored for him before either of you drew breath. Selene backed away, shaking her head. No, I can't be. I would have felt it. I would have known. You did feel it, Nyx replied softly, when you touched him in the garden, when you grabbed his hand tonight. His agony vanished, his wolf stirred, his life steadied. Her voice dropped lower, heavier. He has been dying for months, and yet in a heartbeat you quieted the curse. Selene's pulse hammered, her hands trembled at her sides. Nyx's expression darkened. The bond was hidden long ago, sealed by the king himself, to protect you both. But fate will not remain buried. Selene swallowed hard. This can't be happening. I didn't choose this. No fated bond is chosen. It is lived, or it destroys. Tears pricked Selene's eyes. I'm not ready for this. I don't even know him. And yet your soul already does. Nyx reached out, touching Selene's forehead gently with a feather-light tap. Listen to your dreams. The silver wolf calls to you. Selene blinked, remembering the wolf from her sleep, luminous eyes, the soft whimper, the strange ache in her chest when it turned away. Nyx's voice softened. You fear him, but you fear losing him more. That is how it begins. Selene shook her head fiercely. No, I don't want this bond. I don't want his life tied to mine. Nyx's gaze sharpened into a blade. Then hear me well, child. If Kaelan dies, your soul dies with him. The curse will not take him alone. Selene's breath caught. But I didn't ask for this. The moon goddess asked you, Nyx said gravely, and she rarely takes no as an answer. A sudden gust of wind swept through the corridor, extinguishing the wall torches for a heartbeat. When they flickered back to life, the priestess had already turned to leave. Selene stood rooted in place, her heart pounding painfully. Bound to a dying prince, a mate bond sealed in shadows, a curse that would take them both. She whispered to the empty hallway, voice trembling. What am I supposed to do now? Far across the palace, Kaelan lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his hand still faintly warm from Selene's touch. For the first time in months, his wolf whispered one word, mate. Selene didn't sleep. Nyx's words echoed in her head, relentless, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. If he dies, your soul dies with him. By dawn, Selene found herself standing outside the prince's chamber door, driven by fear, anger, and something else she refused to name. She raised her hand to knock, but the door opened first. Kaelan stood there, leaning weakly on the frame. His eyes softened the moment they met hers. Selene, he breathed, as if her name itself was a source of strength. She almost stepped back, almost turned away, but she didn't. Why didn't you tell me, she asked quietly, about the bond? Kaelan sighed, shoulders heavy. Because I wasn't allowed to. He looked away, shame in every line of his face. But I felt it years ago, the first time I saw you in the training yard. Selene's heart stuttered. He lifted his gaze to hers again, vulnerable, open, painfully honest. I felt the pull, the recognition. My wolf called to you even then. Her breath hitched. Then why suppress it? Kaelan swallowed hard. Because my father ordered me to. Our pack was unstable at the time. I was too young. You were too young. A mate bond would have made you a target. He hesitated. And it didn't fit his plans. Selene's jaw clenched. So he buried our fate for politics? Yes. The fury inside her ignited. Her mother had betrayed her for wealth. The king had manipulated her entire destiny. Even the moon goddess seemed to be playing with her life. "Everyone decided for me," she whispered tremblingly. "Everyone." Kaelan stepped forward, slowly, painfully. "I'm not asking you to accept the bond. I'm asking you not to hate me for something I had no power to stop." Her breath was uneven. "I don't hate you. I just don't know how to trust any of this." Kaelan nodded. "Neither do I." He took one more step, and suddenly, his legs buckled. "Kaelan!" Selene caught him before his body hit the floor. His eyes rolled back, and a stranged groan tore from his throat. His wolf whimpered inside him, the sound faint as fading embers. Selene tightened her grip, panic rising. "Stay with me! Kaelan, look at me!" The same warmth, the same spark, the same invisible thread from the garden and the dining hall surged through her veins. Kaelan's violent tremors stilled. His breathing steadied. Color returned slowly to his face. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then locking onto hers with aching clarity. "Selene," he whispered, chest rising shakily. "Your touch, it's the only thing that stops it." Her throat closed. He depended on her literally. Her absence meant his death, and his death meant hers. The truth settled over her like iron chains. She couldn't walk away, not without killing him, not without killing herself. Selene gently helped him sit up, her hands trembling. Kaelan leaned into her warmth instinctively, as if his soul recognized safety it had long been denied. Selene exhaled shakily, anger and fear and tenderness colliding inside her. "Kaelan," she whispered shakily, "what are we gonna do?" Kaelan leaned his forehead against hers, breath warm and unsteady. "The only thing we can. We fight the curse together." "The only thing we can," Kaelan whispered against her forehead. "We fight the curse together." Before Selene could speak, a cold breeze swept through the corridor, carrying with it the metallic scent of moon herbs and old magic. High Priestess Nyx stepped out of the shadows. Her eyes, silver and ancient, drifted from Kaelan's trembling form to Selene's shaking hands still holding him. "It has begun," Nyx murmured. "The bond is cracking open faster than I expected." Selene stiffened. "What do you mean?" Nyx motioned silently and guided them into a nearby chamber, wards shimmering around the walls as she sealed the room with a flick of her fingers. "Sit," the priestess commanded. Kaelan obeyed, breathing hard. Selene refused the chair. "I want the truth," she whispered. "All of it." Nyx studied her for a long moment, then spoke. "There is an ancient prophecy in the moon temples about a wolf born with two souls tied to another born from a different bloodline. A shared fate, a shared life." Selene's heart pounded. "A shared soul?" Nyx nodded. "You and Kaelan were never meant to exist separately. The moon goddess paired your spirits long before your births." Kaelan's head snapped up in shock. "But that means—" "Yes," Nyx said softly. "From the moment you took your first breaths, you belonged to each other." Selene felt her knees weaken. That can't be. I wasn't even born in the palace. I'm nobody." Nyx's expression hardened. "And that is why the rival pack struck first. They feared the prophecy. They feared what the two of you united would become." Kaelan's voice trembled. "Rival pack? Who?" "The Bloodshade Pack," Nyx whispered. "Old enemies of your royal bloodline." Selene's breath caught. What did they do? Nyx turned to Kaelan. "They cursed the bond the night Selene was conceived. They could not reach the princess who carried the prophecy in the womb, so they attacked her mother. A sick, cold weight settled in Selene's chest. Kaelan's paralysis, the fading of his wolf, the seizures, all of it. The curse was woven to eat him from the inside out, Nyx said gravely, but it should have killed him at birth. Kaelan swallowed hard. Why didn't it? Nyx pointed at Selene. Because your soul shielded him, even from afar. But the curse still took root, waiting for the day your souls drifted close enough to reconnect. Selene backed away, shaking. And now that we touched, it's waking up? Yes. Fully. Kaelan clenched his fists. How do we remove it? Nyx's eyes softened, but the truth she delivered was merciless. By completing the mate bond. Selene froze. What? Accepting him, Nyx said gently, means sharing his strength and his suffering. When his wolf burns, so will yours. When the curse tears him apart, it will tear you too. Only together can you survive it. Selene felt as if the floor disappeared beneath her feet. Kaelan whispered her name in agony. Selene. Nyx continued, voice quieter now. But rejecting the bond outright, Selene looked up, tears gathering, will kill you both. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Selene's vision blurred. Her chest tightened. She tried to breathe, but panic rose too fast. So I either die with him, she whispered, voice cracking, or suffer with him. Nyx stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on Selene's trembling shoulder. This prophecy was never meant to be a cage, child. It was meant to create the strongest alpha pair the world has ever seen. But the curse poisoned that destiny. Selene couldn't hold it anymore. Her knees buckled. Tears streamed down her face. Her lungs shook with sobs she couldn't control. No! No, I didn't choose this. Why wasn't I told this? Why did everyone hide this from me? Kaelan reached for her, guilt tearing through him. Selene, please. She stumbled away from him, crying harder. I don't want to die. I don't want this fate. Kaelan's face crumpled in pain, emotional and physical. Selene covered her mouth, her sobs echoing in the warded room. Her heart wasn't breaking. It was shattering. Selene's sobs echoed long after Nyx released the wards. Her chest ached, her eyes burned. She could barely breathe, but one thought cut through the pain. Someone knew. Someone had to know. Nyx's words replayed in her mind. Attacked her mother the night she carried the prophecy. The royal family hid the bond. The curse waited for you to be born. Selene's heart pounded. Her mother. Her mother had been there from the beginning. With shaking legs, Selene stumbled out of the chamber, ignoring Kaelan's weak call behind her. She walked, nearly ran through the corridors until the servants' wing came into view. Maurice's voice drifted through the open doorway. As long as the king keeps his word, everything will go as planned. Selene froze. Her mother wasn't speaking to a servant. She was speaking to the king's advisor. The advisor bowed. Her acceptance is essential. If she rejects him... She won't, Maurice said sharply. She doesn't need to know everything. Selene stepped into the room, voice trembling with fury. What don't I need to know, mother? Maurice flinched, spinning around. Selene! Leave us, Selene snapped at the advisor, her voice colder than winter. He recovered quickly, bowed, and slipped out, closing the door behind him. Silence. Selene stared at her mother, really stared, and for the first time in her life saw a stranger wearing her mother's face. You knew, Selene whispered. Knew what, child? Selene's jaw tightened. About Kaelan, about the bond, about the curse. Her mother's eyes flickered. guilt, fear, calculation, then settled into defensive anger. This again, Maurice muttered. Selene, don't make a scene. Don't lie to me, Selene shouted. Maurice's mouth snapped shut. Selene stepped closer, tears burning down her cheeks. Did you know I was his mate? Maurice hesitated, then exhaled slowly. Yes. The word hit like a blade. Selene's voice cracked. Since when? Since you were a child. The night the blood-shade wolves attacked me, the priestesses sensed a bond forming in the womb. King Ronan came to me personally to what? Selene choked. To buy my fate? To bury it? Maurice's expression hardened. To protect you. Selene laughed, a broken, shaking sound. No. He protected his throne. You protected your wallet. Maurice flinched. Selene! You made a deal with him, didn't you? Her mother looked away. You hid the bond for money, for status. You let me grow up blind to my destiny so you could have a seat in the palace? Maurice lifted her chin stubbornly. I did what I had to. You don't understand how hard I worked, how much I sacrificed. You sacrificed me, Mother. The words sliced through the room like claws. Maurice's face twisted. Everything I did for your future. No, Selene said, trembling voice. You did it for your own. Maurice grabbed her wrist. Listen to me. You securing this marriage means power, wealth, protection. You could be the most powerful Luna to ever... I don't care, Selene snapped, ripping her hand away. I don't care about power. I don't care about status. Her voice lowered into a whisper thick with heartbreak. I care that you lied to me. You lied about my life, my soul, my fate. Maurice stiffened. I was trying to keep you from being tied to a dying prince. Selene's tears fell harder. Tied? I was born tied to him. And you knew? You knew? And you still tried to force me into this marriage? Not for love, not for destiny, but for benefits? Maurice froze. The truth hung there, ugly and undeniable. Selene's voice softened to a whisper that hurt more than any shout. I would have forgiven you for poverty. I could have forgiven you for strictness. But this? She shook her head slowly. This betrayal, I can't forgive. Maurice's eyes filled with tears. Selene, please, don't leave me. But Selene stepped back. I'm not leaving, she said, wiping her cheeks. I'm choosing. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing my own fate. Maurice reached for her, desperate. Selene! But Selene turned and walked away, her mother collapsing into sobs behind her. Outside, Selene steadied herself. Her heart was bleeding. Her destiny was a storm. Her bond was a ticking clock. But at least now, she would face it on her own terms.
Selene left her mother behind in tears, her heart trembling, her steps unsteady, but her mind finally, painfully clear. The palace was eerily silent as she walked back toward her assigned quarters. Too silent. The kind of silence that feels like the world is holding its breath. A sudden howl tore through the night. Not a call, not a challenge, a scream. Kaelan's wolf. Selene froze mid-step, blood turning to ice. Then she ran.
Servants sprinted past her, guards shouted commands, and healers carried bowls of glowing herbs, all rushing toward the same destination, the prince's chamber. Selene pushed through them, breath shaking, her pulse racing. "Make way," a guard shouted. "He's seizing again, worse than before." Selene's heart dropped. The full moon, its silver glow, was pouring through the palace windows like liquid prophecy. "Please, let me reach him." She shoved open Kaelan's chamber door and stumbled inside, and the sight nearly broke her. Kaelan was on the floor, convulsing so violently 2 warriors struggled to hold him down. His skin was pale as moonlight, veins darkened with cursed energy pulsing like black lightning beneath his skin. His wolf's whimpers echoed through the room, weak, fading, dying. "No," Selene whispered, tears blurring her vision. "Not tonight. Goddess, not tonight." High Priestess Nyx stood over him chanting, her hands blazing with silver sigils, but Kaelan only screamed louder. "His wolf is tearing apart," one healer cried. "We're losing him." Selene didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't breathe. She ran to him. "Selene, no." Nyx tried to stop her, but Selene dropped to her knees and grabbed Kaelan's face with both trembling hands. Instantly, the convulsions eased. His body jerked once, twice, then stilled. Kaelan's eyes shot open, glowing with the faintest silver glow, and locked onto hers. Tears streamed from the corners. "Selene, I can't hold on." His wolf whimpered inside him, a sound so fragile it sounded like goodbye. Selene's heart shattered. Everything she'd run from, everything she feared, everything the curse threatened to steal, she saw it all in his eyes, and she knew she could not let him die. Slowly, with shaking hands, she leaned in. "Kaelan," she whispered, voice breaking, "I accept you." His breath hitched. The room fell silent. Then Selene kissed him, a desperate, trembling kiss, born from fear, from fate, from the bond that had been waiting since before they were born. The moment her lips touched his, the world exploded into silver light. Kaelan gasped, arching into her as their souls collided, their wolves slamming into each other like 2 halves finally becoming whole. Light burst from their chests, wild, blinding, ancient. Selene felt his pain, his fear, his despair, and beneath it all, his love. Kaelan felt her strength, her sorrow, her fire, and beneath it all, her heart calling his name. Their wolves rose together, howling in unison, not separate creatures, but one soul, merging from 2. Silver light swallowed the room, rushing through the palace like a storm. When it faded, Kaelan lay in Selene's arms, breathing softly, the tremors gone. His wolf was no longer dying. It was awakening. Selene sagged forward, exhausted, forehead vesting against his. Kaelan whispered, voice weak, but alive, "Selene, you saved me." She wrapped her arms around him, tears falling freely. "No," she whispered back. "We saved each other." Selene held Kaelan against her, her breath warm against her neck, their bodies trembling from the force of the bond that had just sealed itself. The room was quiet now. No screams, no seizures, no desperate chanting. Just breath. Just life. But then, a sharp, burning pain shot through Selene's chest. She gasped, collapsing sideways, clutching her ribs. Kaelan instantly stirred. "Selene?" Another wave hit, hot, twisting, familiar. His pain, his curse, flowing straight into her. Nyx knelt beside them, eyes heavy with knowledge. "The bond is fully awakened," she murmured. "His suffering, is now your suffering. Your nerves, your heart, your wolf will echo his wounds. Selene winced, forcing herself upright despite the throbbing agony. I can feel everything, she whispered. Everything he feels. Kaelan cupped her face, horror in his eyes. No, Selene, I didn't want this. I never wanted you to hurt. Selene caught his hand before he pulled away. You're hurting because of me, because of a curse meant for both of us. I won't let you face it alone anymore. Kaelan's expression crumpled into something fragile, broken, grateful. Nyx stood and raised her staff. Ancient runes glowed along the walls. It is time, she said softly. The ritual of shared souls. The moon is at its peak. This is our only chance to weaken the curse. They were both exhausted, trembling, barely standing, but they nodded because they were no longer separate. They were one. The ritual. Nyx led them into the moon chamber, its domed ceiling open to the full moon pouring silver across the stone floor. Runes pulsed beneath their bare feet. Stand together, Nyx instructed. Kaelan held Selene's hand tightly as she stepped beside him. The pain hit her again, sharp, burning, crawling up her spine. But she didn't let go. Nyx began to chant. Old words, wolf words. Words older than packs, older than kingdoms. Silver smoke rose around them, swirling in a circle. Kaelan arched forward suddenly, clutching his chest. The curse surged, dark veins spreading up his neck. Selene screamed as the same pain ripped through her. Stay connected, Nyx warned. If you pull apart now, both your souls will shatter. Kaelan's knees buckled. Selene grabbed his face, forcing their foreheads together. I'm here, she whispered through clenched teeth. I'm with you. Look at me. Kaelan lifted trembling eyes, and in that moment, a howl burst from deep inside him, shaking the chamber. His wolf, returning, reaching, rising. Silver fur rippled faintly across his arms, before fading again like a ghost fighting its way back into existence. Selene gasped as something inside her shifted, her own wolf pushing forward to meet his. 2 wolves, 2 souls, 1 heartbeat. The curse screamed, dark mist shooting upward, trying to tear them apart. But Selene wrapped her arms around Kaelan, holding him tight against her body. I won't let you go, she whispered fiercely. Not again. Not ever. Their wolves collided with a roar. Silver light exploded. Darkness shattered. The curse recoiled, shrinking, weakening, but not breaking. Not yet. The bond consumed the chamber like a star igniting. Then suddenly, silence. Aftermath. Selene and Kaelan collapsed together onto the stone floor, breathless and shaking. The curse still lingered, an echo in their veins, but it no longer controlled him. And she felt the truth. Kaelan was alive. His wolf was alive. And her wolf curled against his inside the bond, exhausted, aching, but warm. Kaelan brushed his thumb over her cheek, voice cracked with emotion. You saved me again. Selene smiled faintly, tears streaming. We saved each other, like we were always meant to. He pulled her into his arms, forehead resting against her, breaths mingling. It wasn't passion yet. It wasn't desire. It was something deeper. 2 broken hearts learning the shape of each other. 2 wolves resting after surviving the impossible. 2 souls tied by fate, pain, and something slowly blooming between them. A tender, fragile love, growing painfully, softly, unavoidably. Kaelan's hand slid down her back, gentle as moonlight. Selene curled into him, thinking, maybe love is the cure. Maybe love is the only cure.
Chapter 12. 2 Hearts, 1 Fate. Finale. Kaelan slept for nearly an entire day after the ritual, his breathing finally steady, his wolf humming faintly inside him. When he opened his eyes again, Selene was there, slumped over the edge of his bed, her fingers still interlocked with his. Selene, he whispered. Her head snapped up, relief poured from her eyes in warm, trembling waves. You're awake. You're alive.
Kaelan lifted a shaky hand, the same hand that had once refused to move, and brushed her cheek. Because of you. She froze, not out of shock, but out of a dawning truth she could no longer avoid. They were one soul, one destiny, one heartbeat split across two bodies. Kaelan's recovery begins. With Selene at his side, Kaelan's strength returned faster than anyone in the kingdom expected. First, he sat up without help. Then he stood. And on the third day, supported by her hand at his back, he took his first step. Gasps echoed through the palace halls. "He's walking," someone whispered. "The prince, he's returned." But Kaelan didn't care about the murmurs. He cared only about the girl whose bond tethered him to life. Selene, his salvation, his mate, his other half. She blushed under the weight of his gaze, though she tried to hide it. "You're staring again," she muttered. "I almost died," he replied softly. "Let me look at the reason I didn't." A new future for the kingdom. The news spread across the kingdom before sunset. The Alpha Heir had risen. The curse had broken. The future had been restored. When Selene appeared at his side during the announcement, the crowd erupted. Some shocked, some delighted, all humbled by the miracle before them. Ronan stepped forward, his voice booming through the courtyard. "This girl," he said, "is the reason my son lives, and she will stand beside him as the future Luna Queen." Selene stiffened for a moment, still unused to the idea, but Kaelan reached for her hand, grounding her, claiming her. A single touch, and her heart steadied. Nyx's final warning. Later that night, as celebrations faded into distant music, High Priestess Nyx approached the couple beneath the torchlit palace archway. Her eyes glowed like dying embers, wise, ancient, watchful. "The curse is weakened, but not gone. Dark magic like this does not vanish. It sleeps." Selene's fingers tightened around Kaelan's. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means your bond will be tested. If darkness returns, you must stand together, not as prince and mate, not as wolf and wolf, but as two halves of one soul." Kaelan nodded. "We will." Nyx smiled faintly. "Then the moon favors you." Final scene. Under the moon. Hours later, after the palace quieted, Kaelan led Selene outside. The moon hung enormous and silver above them, the same moon that watched over their first spark of fate, their first touch, their first breath as bonded souls. Kaelan stood behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. For the first time, his body was warm, his strength real, his heartbeat steady. Selene leaned back into him, peaceful in a way she had never known. "Are you afraid of what comes next?" she whispered. "Yes," he answered honestly, "but not if you're with me." She turned to face him, her forehead resting against his. "We're one now," she said. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The moonlight wrapped them in silver glow, two souls woven by fate, healed by love, shadowed by the unknown future. But for tonight, they were whole, they were alive, they were together. End of Book 1.